Hi everyone. Since I'm not here for Friday's class, we're going to do this video in two parts. And my hope is that this video helps you begin to conceptualize a research topic for your final paper. As I said, this video will be in two parts. The first part is concepts, the second part is examples, and you do have your homework assignment at the end of part two. So, we're going to start with identifying a research topic, and this is going to be a short introduction to the ideas of inference and generalization. I want to start with a statement from the assignment sheet. The assignment sheet tells you that you will identify a social conversation circulating around the discourse community that you've chosen. In particular, you want to explore an open question that is created, solved, or made visible by the genre. And I want to take a moment to stop here to say scholars use the word problem to talk about open questions and ongoing social conversations. For some of you, these will be things that feel incredibly urgent. For others of you, they'll be things that don't feel urgent, but that are things your group is talking about. Okay, so remember that when we say problem, this doesn't always mean that it's urgent or earth-shattering. It just means that this group is talking about this question in an ongoing way. I'll also add that it's important for it to be an open and ongoing conversation, because if it's a problem that's already been solved, you're not going to get much of an audience to learn more about it. In this paper, there are two basic models for what you may do. And of course, as always, you may end up doing something a little bit different than this, but this is just a starting point to launch your thinking. In the first model, you say, okay, here's an open question or social conversation. That's that problem in my discourse community. And that's where your essay two is going to come in, because you're going to use that genre that you studied to say, okay, here's why the genre plays a role in solving or answering that question. Alternatively, if we look on the right side of the matrix, what we're going to see is that you can also say, okay, here's the genre that I studied, and it shows me that there's an open question or open social conversation in my discourse community. From there, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find out what experts have said about that problem to understand how we might think about solving it. As you think about finding your social conversation, I want to introduce you to two key critical thinking skills. The first is inference, and the second is generalization. What both of these critical thinking skills do is help you take data and reasoning patterns from one context and use them to draw conclusions about a different but related context. When you engage in inference, you move from the larger group, of which your discourse community is just one instance, and you say, okay, how can I apply ideas and data trends, reasoning patterns from this larger group to my smaller group? When you generalize, you move from the smaller to the larger. So for example, I'm here at this teachers conference. When I go listen to a faculty member from the University of Tennessee talk about what he does in his classes, and I do the work of saying, that's interesting. That's a different group, but related to what I do. Is there anything I can infer from what he's saying and apply to my own classroom? When I use inference, I have to think about both the similarities and the differences between his discourse community and the larger discourse community of college classrooms writ large. I have to think about the similarities and differences there and what we are experiencing in our classroom at a military academy. Similarly, when I speak to people about what I'm doing in my classrooms, I may think, what can I tell them or teach them that we might generalize to say, hey, this might be useful in your classroom too. So when I move from what we're doing in our classroom to what other people might be able to do, I'm using the work of generalization. So again, remember, inference is the process of moving from this larger group into my narrower group, thinking about similarities and differences so I know what I can apply that's relevant. Generalization moves the opposite direction. It moves from my smaller group out to the larger group. Again, thinking about similarities and differences so that I have a good sense of what's actually going to be applicable to them. And don't just assume that everything that's true of us in our classroom is true of them in their classrooms as well. This is the end of part 1 of our video explaining the concepts that you're going to be using. In part 2 of the video, I'm going to do 2 examples. One with the Pikes Peak Humane Society that we started on Wednesday, and the other using those videos from the USAPA Cadet Life website that we watched at the beginning of our genre unit.